Let's talk about exams, medical board exams, with Dr. Kwafu, hey. Everybody got around it.
Welcome back to Medical Board Exam Experience with Dr. Kwafu. Today we are continuing our discussion with Dr. Calvin Ifenli. In a previous interview, he shared with us how he prepared for the USMLE Step 1 exams. Today, he has joined us to share with us how he studied and prepared for the USMLE Step 2 CK. Let us join Dr. Calvin in our discussion. Thank you. Viewers, on this channel, I interview doctors who have successfully passed or failed any medical board exams to share their exams preparation experience with us and with all those preparing to write theirs. If you are watching me and you have experience in any medical board exams and would like to share with us, kindly contact me on my Facebook page, Instagram, or leave a comment at the comment section of this video and I'll keep in touch. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and recommend this channel to any medical student or medical doctor who is preparing to write the board exams of any country. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to this platform, Dr. Calvin Lee.
Thank you.
Okay, in our previous interview, you told us you took the step 1 when you were in third year. So after step 1, how long did it take you to begin the preparation for the step 2 CK?
So 2019 November was when I took my step 1, and then I took my step 2 in January of 2021. So that is a long gap, but because I needed to prepare well to make up for my poor score, so I took a long preparation gap.
Okay, so what resources did you use to prepare for the CK?
So I used the UWorld, that is one. And secondly, I used a book called Master the Boards by Dr. Conrad Fisher, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, MTB. So in Master the Boards, he tells you about the important treatments, important diagnostic tests, which is tested on step 2 CK. They ask you what is the best next step, what is the definitive diagnosis, and all those things. So in that book, everything is concise. They tell you, okay, for this disease, this is the diagnosis, this is the treatment. So I read that.
Okay, Master the Boards 2 has some videos. So they didn't watch the lecture videos?
I did watch the lecture videos. Yes, the videos also I watched it.
Okay, so basically you used you did only UWorld and Master the Boards.
Yes, and also in Facebook, people say that first year for step 2 CK is bad and it's confusing. So I didn't buy it. Well, if people want, they can also take a look. But I just go with what the popular opinion is.
Okay, so how long did it take you to finish the Master the Board book and the videos?
It took me around 4 months because I had a lot of things to catch up on. There were a lot of things to learn. It was slow. And then after that, I brought UWorld subscription for 1 year. And I started doing UWorld. Initially, I did, without time, tutor mode.
Okay.
And then to have a idea of the real exam and time management, I did it in the timed mode.
Okay, so you did the UWorld 2 times, 2 rounds.
Yes.
So the first round, you did it tutor on time mode. Was it system-wise or mixed?
It was system-wise. So I would read one system and I would do the UWorld of the UWorld section of that system.
Okay, so did you take notes when you were doing the UWorld, or you were just reading the explanation and just taking in how much you could?
No, I would make flashcards because UWorld has this function of making flashcards. So I would make flashcards. That also saves time because when you write, it slows you down. So I read the explanation, I make flashcards, and then I move on.
Okay, so in one question, how many flashcards do you make out of?
I usually try to make 1 flashcard per question because if you make too many flashcards, sometimes you lose interest and you don't revise them. So I try to make as less flashcards as possible and as concise as possible.
So the flashcard, is it based on the objectives, or how, what particularly do you look at to use to make the flashcard in a question?
Flashcard, what I'll do is, usually when you get a question wrong, it's either because you read it wrong, or you don't understand what the question is asking, or your concepts are not clear. So I divide my wrongs into these three categories. For the concepts that I don't understand, I actually, in the front page, I put the name of the concept. And then at the back, I put the important points. For the questions that I don't understand what they're asking, sometimes they ask you in different language. They make the language confusing. So what I do is I take a section of that question, I put in the front page, and then at the back, I put the diagnosis.
Okay, you copy the entire question?
No, just a part of the question which is important. Let's say a woman has stomach pain. So her temperature and everything, they're not that important. But a history of, let's say, surgery is important, because then stomach pain, constipation, and surgery means you have adhesions.
Okay.
So I take the important things which lead me to the diagnosis, and I leave the unimportant ones, because otherwise it'll be very long. The questions are usually very long.
Okay.
So I put them in the front page and then the diagnosis at the back. So it's like that.
Okay. So you did that for the first round. Were you doing 40 questions a day, or how many questions were you doing a day?
Yeah. So I remember the first block that I created, the first block of 40 questions, I got 40%. Then in my second block, I got 30%. Then again, my third block, I got 40%. So it was quite disappointing, because I started my UWorld only after reading Master the Boards. So I'm supposed to know these stuff, but I didn't perform very well initially. So in my every block that I make it 40 questions. I solve one block in a day. And then I make notes and revise and understand the concepts. I think one block is more than enough.
Okay. So with that, how long did it take you to finish the first round of UWorld?
The first round of UWorld took me 3 months.
Okay. And the second round, how did you do the second round?
So what I did was, after you do first round, what happens is you kind of remember the question as well as the answers. So, when you do the second round immediately after the first round, if your score increases, that is because you remember the answers,
Yeah.
So what I did was, to remove that problem, I did amboss. It was another Q bank. I just had this washout period to help me forget everything. So I did amboss. I got this $9 per month subscription.
Okay.
I did amboss questions. And then in the month of November and December, I reset my UWorld Q bank, and I did it again in timed test mode.
Okay.
So by then I had forgotten the questions and answers. So when I got it correct, I know that it was because my concepts are clear, not because I remember the answer.
Okay. And at what point did you start doing that assessments, self-assessment and NVMEs?
Yes. So after the first round, I took one assessment. In Facebook, I asked people, because Step 2 CK has only NVMe 1, not NVMe 1, NVMe 6, 7, and 8 that you can buy. So people say you start with NVMe 7 because that's the toughest. Then NVMe 6 and NVMe 8, you save it for 2 weeks before exam, because those are the easiest. It gives you confidence boost. So after my first round, I did NVMe 7. And then 2 weeks before my exam, I did NVMe 6, NVMe 8, and UWorld self-assessment 1 and 2.
Okay. So how was the scores? How were the assessment scores and the NVMe scores?
Well, as expected, in NVMe 7, I just finished my first round, and NVMe 7 is the toughest. I got around 220, but okay. I mean, I was like, I still have time to prepare. I was not in a hurry. So I did my second round. I did amboss. Then NVME 7 and 8, they were better. I got 252 in NVME 8 and 245 in NVME 7.
What about the UWorld self-assessment?
Acha, UWorld self-assessment, I got 251 and 252 in 1 and 2.
Okay. So a day before the exams, what did you do?
A day before my exams, I was not able to sleep, but somehow I just closed my eyes. But of course, I was not fresh when I woke up for the test day. I had coffee, I had light breakfast, and then I reached the exam center 5 minutes before the time that they asked me to come in. On the day of exam, when I started my exam, I didn't know the first question. I didn't know the answer to the first question. It was very bad. It was very, very bad. And somehow I pushed through it. I made educated guesses. Most of the questions I was not sure of the answers. There were some questions that I was sure, okay, they were easy. Ethics was a lot, because now if you look at the question pool, both in step 1 and step 2, they are having a lot of ethics. The problem with ethics is there is no proper book that people recommend. And some people even say that the kind of questions that come in ethics, on that particular day, whatever the examiner says is the right answer is the right answer, because all the 4 questions are very similar.
You mean all the options, the answers?
Yeah, all the four options are similar.
Yeah.
So so it's confusing. And then, but thankfully, when I sat for the exam, the biostatistics and the epidemiology, the questions were easy.
Okay.
For some people, they get really tough questions, but for me, thank God that was easy. And then I made a mistake of taking protein bars for lunch. People say protein bars, but what I found was, on an empty stomach, if you take protein bars, you tend to vomit and you feel nauseous. It's too sudden. Yes, so take proper breakfast, take proper lunch, light lunch. Don't take protein bars on an empty stomach. Take coffee, and that's it.
Okay, so you say you made some educated guess and all that. So is that those concepts you didn't see them in NVMEs or UWorld or the master the boards?
Yes. So I really sat for the exam in an awkward and in an unfortunate time, because last year, around 2019 December, the step 1 and step 2 CK questions started to change. So when I look at the Facebook, those people who sat for step 2 CK before November 2019, they said that the questions were similar to UWorld. And when I look at the scores of people who sat after November 2019, November 2020.
Okay.
So when I look at the scores of people who sat for the exam after November 2020, what they said was that the kind of questions they were asking was changing and the scores were coming down.
Okay.
So what they say and what I found is that usually in UWorld, the questions are like, what is the next best step? But in the exam, what they do is they ask you one step further. I was not prepared for that kind of questions. I made educated guessings, because some of the options, they are downright wrong. When you look at it, okay, it's wrong. Some of the then the other remaining options are similar. So I just went with okay, whatever I felt was right. But yes, the questions are changing and it's becoming tougher. What I find is UWorld is also keeping up. UWorld is also changing the kind of questions it's asking. Yeah. If you look at the new UWorld questions, they do the first step and then they ask you the next step. So it's good that the question banks are keeping up with the change, but there is certainly a change.
So during the exams, how did you manage your time and the breaks? How many blocks did you do before a break?
So I took break after every block, and the 45 minutes or the 1 hour is really not enough for 9 blocks. So I took 5 minutes break between every block. I went to the washroom, I drank water. Then for my lunch, I took 10-minute break. So by the end of the exam, I was just left with 3 minutes of break. So you have to be very, very fast. You go to the washroom, you do your thing, and you come and you again go through the security and enter the room. So 5 minutes is barely enough. But I think different people, they have different arrangements. I think taking a toilet break after every block is good, because you never know when you might have an emergency.
Yeah. Okay. So when you, after the exams, did you know you were going to get this score?
Okay, now after the exam, I told my father, if I do fail in this exam, then I'm not sitting for this exam ever again, because 9 hours was long, long, long. And also I didn't have a proper lunch. I felt nauseous and I didn't have a proper sleep. It was bad. And then the waiting period before the announcement of results, it was long. 2 weeks felt like 2 months. And then when the result came out, I got 249. Then I was happy, because if you look at my scores, they were like between 245 and 250. Although I just missed the 250 by 1 mark, also I'm happy.
So most people say that step 2 CK, U-word is enough. Is it true?
Okay. Because I sat for this exam during the change of the question pool, I felt that UWorld was not enough. But if you look at it now, if you do UWorld now that the question pool has already changed, I think UWorld is sufficient.
Okay. So if you are to take these exams again, you will still focus on the master the boards and the UWorld?
Yes, I would still focus on the master the boards and UWorld, and I would familiarize myself with the new UWorld questions, so that I get a rough idea of the kind of questions they ask in the exam. Yes,
okay.
I would still do master the boards and UWorld.
Okay, so when you were doing the NVMEs, did you try to look up for the answers and the explanations, or you just moved on after finishing the NVME?
Actually, NVME doesn't have that option.
Yes.
You cannot. Yes, you just, once you start the exam, especially online. This time I didn't do NVME offline, because I didn't want to repeat the mistake of step 1. So this time I did NVME online, and once you start the test, it just goes on and on. You can take breaks, but you will not know the result until after you end all the 4 blocks.
Yes. So after, do you look for explanations to the answers?
Yes, I do look at the answers and explanations. So during COVID, NVME was kind enough to give explanations for the wrong answers, because usually NVME doesn't have explanation for wrong answer. They just tell you that this answer is wrong.
Yeah.
But NVME 6, 7, 8 had answers to wrong questions, answers as well as explanations.
Okay.
And yes, and luckily what happened was, NVME, online NVMEs only stay for 3 months after you activate it.
Yeah.
So I sat for the exam within the 3 months. So before exam, few days before exam, I could go back and revise.
Okay.
So that was one thing. Yeah.
Okay. So is there any advice you have for anyone preparing for CK?
Yes. Plan early, and do not, let's say some days you may have a bad day. You don't feel like doing it, or you have some problems. And when you do a UWorld practice block, you may get lower percentage, but don't focus on one day's performance. Set a goal for long term, let's say 1 week. Some days of the week you may get, let's say 80%, some days of the week you may get 60%. But if at the end of the week you get an average, your average is near to your target, then you should be happy. And keep this guidelines, screening guidelines, those are important. They'll ask you, okay, what is the guideline for these diseases? There's this USPSTF guidelines that you can go through. And one important thing is, I also listened to Divine Interventions podcast.
Okay.
So that guy, I think he's from Nigeria.
Yeah.
So he has this Divine podcasts, and that is really good. So while doing your chores, like let's say you are in a supermarket, you're just walking, you can listen to his lectures. I did that. Yes, and take your own sweet time is what I'm trying to say. Don't be in a hurry to schedule a date, because rescheduling is again a hectic task. So what I did was, after my first NVME, I roughly knew where I stood, and I knew how many more months I would take to reach my target score. And accordingly, I scheduled my 3-month period as well as the date of exam. So don't be in a hurry. And yes, important thing is to be true to yourself. What I mean is, don't let's say, don't be overconfident or underconfident.
Okay.
If you don't know something, you have to accept it and you have to go through it. Let's say if you get a question correct by chance, instead of really understanding why you got it correct, don't be happy, go through it.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Dr. Calvin, for joining us today, and we wish you all the best in the remaining USMLE journey, and we hope to have you again on this platform. Thank you for joining us.
Let's talk about exams, medical board exams. With Dr. Kwafu, hey. Everybody got around it, hey. Let's talk about exams.